What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, bringing you a review bonus episode this week. Did you miss us? We've been gone for a couple of weeks. Part of that is my responsibility. I was traveling to New York for a family wedding, but I'm back in Phoenix now. Joel is traveling to Chicago. He's moving back there from Houston. Nick, I believe, is traveling to Seattle this week, so we wish him safe travels to Seattle. And I believe Moses is working on post-production of a short film, which is his follow-up to the award-winning film Goals, which we're very proud of him about, and we can't wait to see his movie. So this episode is going to be kind of like my quick review of the new Sony Pictures animation Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is the follow-up to the 2018 smash hit, an Oscar-winning movie actually, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And if you know me, listen, Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, favorite comic book. I remember seeing the first Tobey Maguire movie on DVD, and I was kind of just blown away by like, wow, this is what the magic of movies could be like, and superheroes. That was my first superhero movie I ever saw. It was 2002, Spider-Man on DVD. I think I saw that movie on DVD actually, and I just love that movie so much. But yeah, anyway, ever since I was a kid, Spider-Man's been a big part of my childhood, teenage years, adulthood, and to this very day, it's very important to me. I love the game. I won the Spider-Man PS4 Pro bundle set on a raffle back in college because I was a huge Spider-Man fan. Sent all the pictures of me and my Spider-Man onesie growing up and my Spider-Man Halloween costume. So Spider-Man's a big part of my life, and I can't wait to review this movie and give my ranking of all Spider-Man movies, both live action and animated. As always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast platform of choice. While you're there, hit that follow button, leave a review and rating. It helps us out tremendously and helps out show tremendously as well. So thank you guys, as always, for your support. Before we begin, actually, to our Phoenix listeners, you are in quite the luck, actually. We are actually now giving away some really cool stuff. We're giving away passes to this really funny movie called Joyride, which I highly recommend. I went to the press screening about a month ago. It's so funny, so much heart. It's one of my favorite, probably, movies of the year, if not one of my favorite comedies of the past 2 years. It's just fun seeing, rated R movies back in the theater, with a big audience. Again, if you're a Phoenix, you're in luck. We're going to give away a couple passes to the screening of the movie. There's going to be two upcoming screenings. One will be June 14th, and the other will be June 28th. All you got to do is go to our Instagram page, hit that link tree in our bio. The first link in the link tree, click that. I'll bring you to a Google Form sheet. While you're there, fill out your information. You can bring up to one guest, pick the date of choosing, and at the very bottom, I'm going to say, how'd you hear about this opportunity? Make sure to put us, the Genre of Your Life podcast, or Doug, or Midway Avenue Productions. And I hope you enjoy the movie, guys, because it's super funny. I hope you can go. If you have any questions about it, you can DM us on Instagram or send us an email at midwayavenueproductions@gmail.com or go to our website. We also have links to the screenings there. Like I said, it's super funny, and we're going to give away a couple of passes if you're a Phoenix listener. So if you're kind of want to see a movie early before anyone else, it's a good, super funny comedy. I highly recommend jumping on that sooner than later because it's going to probably go by fast. So like I said, go to our Google form, go to our Instagram, link in the bio, our link tree, link will be right there, or go to our website, midwayavenueproductions.com, and there'll be a screening tab on the website. Click that, scroll down, you'll find the link to the screening RSVP Google form. Like I said, follow information, bring up to one guest, and I hope you enjoy the movie. Alrighty. Like I said, this is going to be a Spider-Man-centric episode. I already gave my whole spiel why I love Spider-Man so much. He's a big part of my life as it is. And to be frank, guys, you know what? I was not the biggest fan of the first Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. I think it's beautifully animated. I think the animation is gorgeous. Killer soundtrack gave us Post Malone and Sway Lee's song Sunflower, which is now like the most streamed, downloaded song of all time, which is crazy. I remember being in college hearing that. I'm like, oh, the song's pretty catchy. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan. I adore Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who did the first one. These guys done stuff like Cloudy with Chance of Meatballs, the Jump Street movies, the Lego movies. They were wrongfully fired from the Han Solo movie, which I still to this day have so much kind of resentment against. Even though I love that movie without them, I still think they would have been even better with them included. But besides the point, they're just very creative guys. I actually went to a Q&A panel with them for an Oscar thing when I was living in LA a couple years back before COVID, and they love their animation so much, but also they just love storytelling, and they're so witty and they're so unique, they're so clever, and they're very a lot of heart to their stories, and they seem like good dudes too. I'm a big fan of all of their work, both of them, and so knowing that they're involved, I like the movies even better. But again, for some reason, the first one, it's good. It's a very good movie. I think it tells Miles Morales' origin story awesome. I love a good origin story. I think it was very fresh. It was unique. It was very innovative at the time because we were seeing a bunch of like superhero movies a lot, and that was a year of like we had great years. That year it was Black Panther, which broke everything. I mean, it was so groundbreaking. I mean, it was a huge part of the culture. Infinity War, another one, groundbreaking, huge cliffhanger. It was kind of like, wow, we're seeing all these characters now off of like 10 years come together for this epic movie. And also, we got Spider-Man to the Spider-Verse. So it was a very good year for superhero movies. But for some reason, it just didn't click the way other people did for themselves. Maybe I saw it 2 weeks late, to be honest, too. I mean, after the hype. I know Joel saw it early screening. He's like, "Oh, bro, the movie's amazing." And Joel's Puerto Rican Cuban, so as a Puerto Rican, he was very like touched. That there's a story about kind of like his culture and so on. Like he can like like see himself in a little bit. So I do think animation's gorgeous. Great soundtrack, great voice acting. Shamik Moore was perfect casting as Miles Morales. I love Jake Johnson. I like Haley Steinfeld. It was all around good casting. But some of the humor didn't really work for me entirely. I think it was a bit overhyped when I saw it too, unfortunately. So that could have been a factor of that, but either way, I think it's still gorgeously animated. You see how much time they took into that. I love him wearing Jordan ones. Chicago and myself. Seeing the Jordan ones and the kind of Bulls colors, love it. Chef's kiss. And I think it was so rightfully awarded the best animated feature of the year, the Oscars. I mean, nothing else kind of could touch close to it. I mean, how much effort and dedication and craftsmanship goes into animation, especially that animation, is just again fantastic. So I'm glad it won the Oscars. Again, love Phil Lord and Chris Miller as well. So well deserved. But with this one, I went in skeptical because I didn't like the first one as much. This one's also very overhyped, and I was like, oh, am I going to have the same thing? I love this movie. I think as a Spider-Man fan, it hits all the notes. Um, I think the first Into Spider-Verse did a good job, kind of like setting up with like the multiverse kind of is, and then a lot of movies kind of followed suit after that, as we know, No Way Home and Endgame and everything. So, it definitely kind of like the first kind of like the real mainstream one, I feel like, in the Marvel kind of like space of movies. But this one I really had a great time with. I mean, where do we begin? I think the animation, I think to me, a lot of my issues I had with the first one, I think they improved a lot on this one, where the animation, which was an issue for me in the first place, but the animation is still just beautiful. I mean, every frame is it's like a work of art. It's beautifully shot. Um, it's crisp. It's just like it's literally looking at a museum of art. I think all the voice acting kind of elevates too. Shamik Moore still killing it as Miles Morales as Spider Man. I mean, again, who I love. Brian Tyree Henry, who I love playing his dad. Great voice acting. Oscar Isaac, who I've been a big fan of since Inside Llewyn Davis, really does a great job of playing Miguel O'Hara. Spider-Man 2099. Issa Rae, who I like a lot. It's great as Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew. Kaluuya, who I've been watching since Black Mirror, was great as Hobby, Spider-Punk. Jason Schwartzman, who I'm a huge fan of. I love seeing him more stuff, recently, with more Wes Anderson stuff or just kind of quirky stuff. I love him as an actor, and I think he was in Righteous Gemstones last season. He was hilarious in that. So he plays like the villain Spot, which I think was kind of Spot was pretty funny casting, if you ask me. But I want to give a shout out to Luna Lauren Velez, who plays his mom, Rio Morales. I think what really kind of sold me on this movie is the dynamic between Miles and his mom. It's a very touching story about like his mom is want to make sure his son does well in the world, and making sure his mom wants see him succeed and follow his dreams, follow his passion, but like also don't go too far because they're very close, and she wants to be close to her son. Which I think is a really beautiful story. I really think her voice acting as well as Shamik Moore are just really they kind of stood out the most of like even though it's voice acting, you can tell the passion and the craftsmanship, dedication they're putting into their voice acting, like they would do like a normal live action movie. I love that about it. Um, Again, Jake Johnson back as Peter B. Parker. Still great casting if you ask me, because he plays a different kind of reason. Peter Parker's kind of like in the broken, like older version of Peter Parker, which I love about it. But yeah, so many great voice acting. And like I said, I really do give credit a lot to Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Um, just because of like they know how to bring in such great talent. I think adds credit to their craftsmanship as filmmakers, as storytellers, because I think everyone wants to work with them. I think even before Into the Spider Verse, I think it was like Lego Movie, A Chance with the Meatballs, 21 Jump Street. Like they have such a great, unique way of storytelling where it's so refreshing each movie. And I love the Jump Street movies so much. They're really dear to my heart, my favorite comedies of all time. And they just the way they tell the comedy was just so funny and so unique and so kind of different and clever when they came out. And again, I think 10 years later they still hold up very well, if you ask me. Um, but yeah, just all the animation is just it's just gorgeous. But I do have some cons with the movie as well, even though I loved it. It's 2.5 hours, and that's long for any movie, but for animation, it does feel almost a little bit long, if not longer. I think the first half hour drags a bit, where there's a lot of scenes of like dialogue and character interactions that just kind of feel just like a little bit dragged out, a little slow. And at first, I was kind of like, okay, I'm with this, but I do feel kind of a little bored, and it's kind of dragging out scenes of dialogue and scenes of interaction with different characters. I was like, all right, I guess, but it's 2.5 hours. I mean, you gotta use their time wisely. But that I think the first, not half, I mean the first half of the first half an hour, I think, does drag a little bit. And I was like, okay, let's get on with it, guys. Let's keep moving forward. Um, and I'm big about pacing now. I think I've been noticing pacing a lot more in movies now, where I'm like, oh, good pace. This is kind of quick. This is really fast. I like this. Or it was drawn out a little bit more, but it was worth it. It was rewarding. Okay, I like that a lot too. And I do think with this movie, it has that. Like, hey, it was a bit long at the beginning, but it is rewarding towards the end of the movie and throughout the entire movie. After the first act maybe, or the first half of the first act. I'll give it that. As well as, again, I will praise animation till the day I die. I think animators are just artists. They put in so much work. They put a lot of themselves in these movies. I think when they're in Gwen's world, I won't spoil too much. It's very distracting because her animation is very different from Miles compared to Peter's and 2099 and other different universes. But there's scenes of like kind of intense dialogue and emotional scenes. They would change the animations like left and right, different shades of color, like keep doing it like either in the background or like on characters' faces. And to me, it's very noticing and very distracting. I feel like just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it when all beautiful animation, because there was like really heartfelt moments between Gwen and her dad, and like very intense scenes of dialogue of like, yeah, like things that were going on. And then you see different colors, different colors, different colors, background change, different colors, background change, all in the same scene while they're in the same kind of location. And that to me, I was kind of like, whoa, this is giving me a little bit of a headache, because I'm like, this is distracting. Like I'm noticing it more than I'm noticing the scene or hearing the dialogue or hearing the interaction or whatever. I'm like, I want to be more focused on the interaction and dialogue of the characters than, look, we had us different colors. Oh, let's go over here. There's new color over here. Color on the face, different color on their face. And I'm like, yeah, but what? Again, you have the beautiful animation. Don't overdo it. I feel like I do think they were kind of overdoing it a lot when they're on Gwen's world, and then they go back to her world throughout the movie. And I was like, again, they're doing the same thing again, where it's changing animation, changing background, changing color palettes. And I'm like, again, you're trying to show off how great animation you have. And believe me, you do, but you shouldn't really overdo it, because it takes away the importance of the scene that was going on. So that was my two biggest takeaways, my cons of the movie, I would say. Um, I listened to a show called Double Toasted with Corey Coleman and Martin Thomas, who I love them so much. They're one of my favorite podcasts. The two guys from Houston reviewing movies, great show. I highly recommend their show as well. And Martin, one of the co-hosts, was like, I looked at all the different reviews on YouTube and podcasts over the weekend, and he was the first one that I could that same thing I said. It was like the animation was kind of distracting when it was like changing left and right, all in this like 1 minute scene or 2 minute scene, because it is, again, we want to be more focused on the dynamic between these two characters and the dialogue and conversation itself than flashy colors. Because I'm like, again, it's taking away, distracting. But like I said, I had my two biggest kind of gripes with the movie, cons of the movie, but it didn't make me take away a huge rating of it overall. But that's about all I can say about my cons. But yeah, I mean, what I really do like the best movie, kind of sold it home for me, was the message about finding yourself. And I think that's very important, no matter how old you are, whether you're in your teens or young adults, 50s, you're an elder adult. I think you still can find the message of like finding yourself very relatable. And this one's about, Miles is trying to find who he is as Spider-Man. And then when he meets that there's so many more Spider-Man than just him, how do you make yourself unique? How do you make yourself kind of stand out the most? Like, how are you different? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I think it's very important that no matter what age you are, where you come from, you shouldn't compare yourself to like different people, because it never sits well with you. I think it also it's like you should live your life that you want to live it, and don't feel like pressure to like be someone else or be someone different because this person's doing it, this person's doing that. Because we all come from different backgrounds, different what ways of life, walks of life, and ways of life. So I love that Miles kind of figuring out like how am I Spider-Man for me and my universe. How am I gonna be the best Spider-Man? How am I gonna be unique to myself? Because when he meets all these thousands of Spider-Men in this universe all together, Spider Society, everyone's similar in a way. They're all Spider-Man, but how do you make yourself different? How do you make yourself unique in yourself? I love that about it because again, it's very he's Miles dealing with the conflict of both internally, externally of like I'm not a Peter Parker. I'm not a Gwen Stacy. I'm not Miles. I'm not this. I'm Miles Morales, and it's important for me to represent who I am as a person, finding whom I am, and also like figuring out what kind of journey I want to be on, and not letting anyone tell me what I can and what I can't do. And I just love that. I think it's very important. Again, like I said, whoever you are, male, female, background, different background, ethnicity, sex, everything, cultures. It's very important to kind of make sure make your own journey, follow your own path because no one can tell you what you can and can't do. And I love that about it. Let's see. Like I said, again, this also was a part one of part two. I knew that a year ago. They pushed it back a couple of years because of freezing animation and different. COVID, we're still in COVID anyway, so it is a big setup of part one and part two of a larger story. However, they do a very good job of making this kind of stand on its own. Even though it's part two of a trilogy, this movie can stand on its own for sure, and has legs of like, hey, look, we did a lot. We established a lot of world building, a lot of conflict for Miles, a lot of kind of just like different bit of an arc in its own movie from the beginning to the end because Miles is definitely a very different person than he was at the beginning of the movie than he was at the end of the movie. And so I do credit a lot to the filmmakers and Phil Lord, Chris Miller, that they really do a good job of keeping this movie its own, even though it's part of a bigger story. I love that about it because a lot of times there's movies that are this big one big setup. Again, I love Dune. I love 2021's Dune by Denis Villeneuve, my favorite filmmakers, one of top 10 movies of that year. But that movie for sure is a big setup for part two. Still loved it. I think it for sure can stand on its own. However, it does rely on a lot of like wait to come what's next. What's going to come next after this, and it's a really big like alley oop to part two. Same with I would compare this one to almost Infinity War. Infinity War is a it's huge movie, but it for sure, if you watch it on a rewatch, it for sure can stand on its own of like what this movie is, the conflict, the characters, what's going on, different situations, different scenarios, different storylines, and it's on its own. We float on its own for sure. Where Endgame also again, it's the conclusion of a 4-part series, but it for sure can stand on its own. I love that about Infinity War as well. Like I said, Phil Lord, Chris Miller, love these guys. I think the writing is just very, very witty, very clever. No matter if it's an animated movie or not, they just know how to write really good dialogue for any kind of genre, whether it's comedy, whether it's drama, whether it's animation, whether it's whatever. They just know how to write really good, good at telling really good stories, and creating world building and conflict for characters, and making everyone feel relatable enough. And they also wrote this with Dave Callahan, who Dave Callahan to me is a very fascinating guy. I don't love all of his work as a writer. I think he's good. I think he's good as a co-writer because I'm not the biggest fan of the first Expendables movie with all the actors. It's cool. It's something special. I didn't love Shang-Chi as much, but I think the writing that is definitely unique for what it was going for. What else he did? Zombieland 2, he co-wrote it, but again, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who wrote Deadpool 1 and 2, Deadpool 3, as well as the first Zombieland, they wrote it as well. So, again, co-writing. And they also co-wrote Wonder Woman 84, which I know people despise that movie for some reason. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's kind of a fun movie. It kind of came out during, when mid-COVID. It was still very oh, what's going to happen next? I don't think it was terrible. People, as good as the first, no. But, like I said, I don't think it's terrible. But anyway, so yeah, he's had some hit or misses as a writer. That I think I've seen from him, I love. But I think that he paired with two genius writers, which is, again, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. And it was a very smart move on his behalf because he can now kind of expand his word in animation and work with these two guys who just know how to write great stuff, who are Oscar winners now. So I think all the writing kind of like comes together full circle, and it really works for this movie whatsoever. That to me, I think some of the humor did not work for me as much in the first movie, but however, this humor in this movie worked a lot better, no doubt about it. Uh, a lot of good surprises. We live in this era now, just of like we gotta spoil everything. And I'm trying to avoid social media more and more. We host a movie show, a review show. Is like even though I do this for work sometimes, it's also frustrating when we go on social media doing research whatever for a movie and then oh yeah this part happens. Like come on, like you shouldn't take away from other people's enjoyment. I think we're getting worse whether it's on TikTok or Reddit or Twitter or Instagram, whatever. Is that let people enjoy the movie. I think a week is I think a week is like okay, give it a week and then you can talk about it. But if you're going on like the moment the movie comes out, like opening night on Thursday or matinee on a Friday, you're just kind of being dickish, kind of being unfair. And I'm like, you know what, let people enjoy the movie. But I try avoiding as much as I can. Place out on a Sunday, and I saw a few things that were gonna spoil it for me, and I was like, all right, whatever. But I'm glad that not too much was spoiled for me. A lot of surprises in this movie that I won't go in. Remember, this is a non-spoiler review. I'm not going. It just you shouldn't take enjoyment from other people. It's because look how crazy this is. For me, like I once on No Way Home, I truffed my social media for a full week. I was like, absolutely not. I am really bunkering down. Like, no, thank you. Because if I knew Toby and Andrew were in the movie, but if I saw a clip of it before it came out, the minute I've been like, come on now, like what really like, but that happened to me. So glad it didn't happen to me. But this made a lot of good surprises that I'm glad that was spoiled. So if you can avoid spoilers, I would try to because I think it's worth the payoff and worth like what's revealed and what isn't revealed and what who shows up, who doesn't show up. I think it's very rewarding. Again, also, me, I really love a good soundtrack. As I remember as a kid, buying the CDs from Borders and Barnes and Noble or in iTunes and in Walmart. I'd be like, I used to buy CDs and like buy like the hard copy and then digital copies of soundtracks, whether it's School of Rock, Space Jam. Oh my gosh, the list goes on and on. I remember buying the Flushed Away CD at Barnes and Noble like years ago. When I was a kid. I had a gift card to it, so I used to love buying soundtracks no matter what. Now I'm older, still buy soundtracks. I buy them on vinyl, or buy them on or I stream them on Apple or Spotify. So I just love. Again, I'm a sucker. I'm a nerd for good soundtracks. Not so much score, but like for soundtracks. Again, like the Fast and Furious soundtracks and again Space Jam and I remember like Mike was a big soundtrack favorite of mine. A lot of Adam Sandler movies and Will Ferrell movies growing up. So again, I'm a big soundtrack nerd and appreciator. This to me has a great soundtrack. Metro Boomin, who I love as a producer. He's a great album last year called Heroes and Villains I loved. He did Savage Mode 2, which I loved during COVID with 21 Savage. I love that Phil Lord, Chris Miller listens to like they knew like, hey, this young producer who's killing the game in hip hop and rap, let's bring him in. Because I think when good soundtracks really work is when the story when like they kind of match the story, match the vibe, match the characters. For example, like Black Panther with Kendrick Lamar and TDE, they match that album so well. The songs match to like Killmonger, to T'Challa, to Wakanda itself, to like this movie itself, and that was just genius both on Ryan Coogler's part, Kendrick Lamar's part, TDE's part, where they knew how to craft a perfect soundtrack for a really important movie. And I think with this one as well, Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Sony brought in Metro Boomin, who again has been killing it recently as a producer, working with some of the biggest hip hop names and singers and artists right now, and that Metro Boomin really made this album to match, what Miles is going through, what Gwen is going through, what Miguel O'Hara is going through, what Spider Verse is going through itself. And I've been playing it on nonstop since it debuted on this past Thursday, and man, it's a really good soundtrack. It really does match the vibe of the movie, and certain scenes of the movie, the songs that they pick for the scenes itself work so well. And again, that's props to Metro Boomin as a creator himself, and now working with filmmaking and motion pictures. And again, I give Phil Lord, Chris Miller, and Sony, whoever brought him in, was that hey, we're gonna bring in this guy who right now is very a voice of generation for hip hop and rap, and works with some phenomenal artists. And so we kind of craft this soundtrack as Miles' story, but also for Gwen's story, for Miguel O'Hara's story, and for the Spider-Verse story itself. I think that was very smart on their part. Love the soundtrack. Can't wait to buy it on vinyl when it comes out, if it comes out on vinyl. So again, I hope he comes back for part 3. I really do. I think he did a fantastic job with the soundtrack. It's very, all the songs just work. and kind of hit the feels and also just kind of amp you up for the movie itself. So loved it. Um, One thing I will say, despite it's not spoiler, I'm trying not to walk around spoilers as much as I can. The movie kind of for sure, even though it's dealing with multiverse, not so much time travel, it had a Back to the Future vibe of it that I really liked about it because both Marty and Miles are both kind of like similar in a way of like they're discovering themselves in the larger than life scenario. I mean, yes, Marty didn't have superpowers, but he had time travel. Miles has superpowers, but also now he's the power of traveling dimensions and how that happens. And I think that's really I kind of the comparison of like young kids watching this kind of like Back to the Future, and this for sure Back to the Future 1 and Back to the Future Part 2 kind of vibe for it. Again, now spoiler is when I was watching it, I'm like, this feels like Back to the Future 2 in in this scene or in this scene or in that scene. And I love that. Again, could be just me kind of just making my own comparison, my own kind of like drawing conclusions, whatever. Like that crazy it's always sunny in Philadelphia Charlie meme, like all the lines he's going crazy or whatever. But I saw a lot of comparisons to Back to the Future, both 1 and 2, and I'm like, I really like this a lot because they both kind of have a similar vibe and kind of similar stakes to be kind of like lost, or important stakes that are important both to Marty and to both the Miles in this movie especially. So if they did, again, hats up to the filmmakers, to Phil Lord and Chris Miller for that, because man, if they did that, awesome. You win my respect because again, as you know, Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time, and I love Part 2 and Part 3. But number 1 and 2 are the first two I just love so much. They're really dear to my heart. But yeah, guys. So I'm giving this right now. Ooh, 9 or I'm gonna give it an 8.5 or close to a 9 out of 10. I really like this movie a lot. I had so much more fun with it than the first one. Not gonna lie, the first one I remember seeing with some friends in college. I think I was packing for my semester abroad to London. I met some friends before I was, saying goodbye to some friends before I moved to London. And I think I fell asleep in the first one in theaters, and I felt so bad because I was like so hyped for this movie. I love Spider-Man. I for sure dozed off. And my friend Cody was like, "Yeah, I think you dozed off in part of the movie." I was like, "Oops." So, but I watched it again when I was in London. I still liked it, but I didn't love it as much as I did with this one. But this one, I think, to me, improved so much. It's a better sequel. And it's a really, again, one of those rare sequels that kind of improves on the first to me, if not better than the first one. So I'm giving it for sure, giving it an 8.5, close to a 9 out of 10. Worth seeing it. See it in Dolby. I saw it in Dolby Cinema. I'm trying to explore more. Again, I'm an IMAX nerd until the day I die, no matter what. But this wasn't filmed for IMAX. But I think it's very important to see these in premium formats, whether it's Dolby, IMAX, 4DX, I'm trying to think, ScreenX, Prime at AMC. So I saw it in Dolby, and the colors were just beautiful, and the sound was loud. It was booming. It was very kind of like you were immersed in this movie the moment the credits started rolling. So I would definitely see it in a large premium format, like a Dolby, or to see it in general. So go to the movie, see it in general. It's fun to see it with the crowd. It's fun seeing it with the crowd. I mean, my crowd was mostly like it was kids, but mostly adults. But I love seeing that too. Like we're still showing up for Spider-Man, showing up for Miles' the story, and showing up for really good animation. So worth seeing in theaters. I can't wait to watch it again. I'm for sure buying this on 4K when it comes out because I can't wait to watch it again on TV and pausing and watching it. So I probably missed so much Easter eggs that I'm kind of need to go back and like see what I missed. But yeah, for sure 8.5, close to a 9 out of 10. Go see, support animation, support this movie because I can't wait to see Part 3 and see how they expand the Spider-Man universe. Alrighty, now we're getting into the ranking. It was kind of hard to say. I love all these Spider-Man movies. Equally. I mean, yes, and I have some good ones as like others, but I don't think there's really a bad Spider-Man movie. We'll get into this, but like I still have some appreciation to both Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, despite the flaws and the criticisms of the movie. But I love all these movies because Spider-Man, he means so much to me as a character, and I don't know. As growing up, I'm still attracted to these stories and still attached to these movies. Like, again, I was 24 when I saw into the No Way Home 2 years ago, and I was just like it was like being a kid again. I was so excited. I couldn't sleep at night. I was watching all the Spider-Man movies beforehand. I was like, it felt like Christmas to me. I was like, oh my god, we're seeing No Way Home. I knew Tobey and Andrew were going to be in it, but like how they're going to be it, I didn't know. But I love these movies so much. So all right, let's see if I can rank these now. And again, I think all of them are good filmmakers too. I think Mark. Tim Raimi did a good job kind of bringing big superhero movies to life after kind of like Tim Burton did, and then Bryan Singer did with X-Men. And also too, I think Mark Webb. You know what? I do think Mark Webb gets a lot of slack too. I think he brought something new and unique to the franchise as well. Even though those movies weren't as well received, I still like them. I think Andrew Garfield was a very good Spider-Man. Peter Parker not so much, but we'll get to it. All right, so starting at number 10, I have Spider-Man 3. Listen, as a kid, I was obsessed with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, all three of them. I remember my dad took me to the first one I saw on a DVD for my birthday. I remember seeing that. But I remember my dad took me opening night, Spider-Man 2, when I was a little kid. And I was just obsessed with those movies. I was obsessed with Doc Ock and Tobey Maguire. Like, I wanted to be Spider-Man so badly. It was a big part of my childhood. Spider-Man 3 I remember seeing when I was, I want to say 9. I remember seeing it a little bit later. I think it was, with life, and I was doing, sports, whatever. I just didn't see it as I wanted to. But I remember my dad took me and my brother to go see it. And I was kind of just like, whoa. I was like glued to it because it was like, wow, black suit Spider-Man, that's so cool. And when you're a kid, you're kind of like oblivious to all the flaws and like kind of like, well, that makes no sense. And again, as a kid, I loved, as my parents did this, I loved literally every movie I saw, no matter what it was. Any movie I saw in theaters, I loved it. Could be anything. Could be SpongeBob SquarePants, See Spot Run, Scooby-Doo, whatever, Spider-Man. I literally loved every movie I saw in theaters. But Spider-Man 3, loved it as a kid, and I got older, I'm like, oh, there's some flaws to it. Yes, I think why is Venom in that? I don't know why. Love Venom as a character, love Venom as a villain, but it's crowbarred in there for sure. Topher Grace, good actor, miscast on so many different levels. They should just focus on Sandman or Sandman and New Goblin by Harry Osborn, played by James Franco, because that's more personal to him, to Peter and Spidey. And I think Venom in there was just too many different villains. I remember at the time, or like back at a lot of it was at the time with a lot of villains for one movie, and I think it was kind of convoluted. Some great scenes, and they scene with when Harry and him team up. It's awesome. And the first scene in the Black Suit Spider-Man, when he's kind of discovering the power for the first time and seeing how strong he can be, was very interesting. Again, Tom Holland Church was a great villain as Sandman. Well, they brought him back for No Way Home. But yeah, if you watch again, it's a movie that kind of dampers what could have been an amazing trilogy, because the first, and no pun intended, the first two are just phenomenal superhero movies. They're great storytelling. Sam Raimi does this thing of like this beautiful like directing, great shots, great acting. But I think 3 dampers from what could have been a fantastic trilogy. So I had Spider-Man 3 at number 10. Again, slug them for what it is. I enjoy it, but not the best. Number 9, I have The Amazing Spider-Man, which I know probably like people are like, well, it's kind of low for you. I remember when I first saw it, I think I was so spiteful. I was like, it should have been Tobey. Why do we have a new Spider-Man? Like, how dare you? And as a kid, I was very naive of like, I don't know how reboots and remakes kind of work, but I was like, why isn't Tobey being the Spider-Man? Why is he gone? I was like devastated. I was like, he's my Spider-Man. He's my superhero. Like, it means so much to me. And I remember seeing Andrew Garfield from Social Network. I'm like, oh, this kid's gonna be a good actor. Like, he's a phenomenal actor. Like, he's gonna be great. But to me, I was so like kind of like I was like a little shocked. Like, no, like how dare they replace Tobey? And I remember seeing it like in high school with some friends over the summer, and I'm like, okay, it was cool. I didn't love it that much. I think my friends did. Some of the humor didn't really work for me. I was like, oh, it's kind of silly. I thought the lizard was kind of like really bad. It wasn't the best CGI. But to be fair, over time, I've grown to love that movie a lot more, actually, because I feel like Andrew was a really good Spider-Man. Is he the best Peter Parker? No. I think he was kind of too cool and too kind of like, yeah, look at me, like kind of like too hipster-ish to be Peter Parker. And also he's very handsome too, where I think, Peter Parker is a handsome guy, but like he's more relatable. I think Andrew Garfield was just very handsome and very just like too cool for school. So it docks some points down for me. Also, I do think some like the web sling, the web swinging throughout the city looks really kind of over CGI'd. Where in Tobey, it was early 2000s, it just to me felt more groundbreaking and felt more kind of just like this could happen. But I do like Amazing Spider-Man a lot more than I think about it. The more I watch it, but it's a little clunky midway through. Like it drags a little bit with certain scenes with the lizard, but I do have appreciation for Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man a lot more. So that's number 9. And oddly enough, number 8 is Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I remember people were like what? People I talked to despise this movie, or like think like this is the worst Spider-Man movie ever. I think it's fun. I remember seeing this also in high school with some buddies. And I remember going in, I'm like, I did not like the first one at all as much. It was fine. But I think a good time with this one. I had a good time with this one. Like, I love his new suit. It looked more Spider-Man to me. I think Andrew Garfield kind of like embodied more of Spider-Man a lot more. Still a little too cool to be Peter Parker, in my opinion. But he was cracking jokes, quipping jokes as Spider-Man perfectly. I love that like he's kind of like finding himself again like post high school. Like, what are you gonna do after high school? Like, what are you gonna do? No, it was look at Gwen. Gwen is now moving on. Like, you want to be with her, but you promised her dad in the last one that you stay away from her so she doesn't get hurt. And I just really like that kind of like him trying to figure himself out while still trying to follow the love of his life, even though it's not gonna work out, but he's still trying to be optimistic. And I think Jamie Foxx is a good Electro. A little kind of goofy how they made him look in the with the blue and like the kind of the bad comb over and the glasses and the gap teeth. A little silly. And I don't think Dane DeHaan was the bad Green Goblin. I think it was a little forced into it a little bit. I think they should have focused on, again, Spider-Man 3, they should have focused on either Goblin or Electro. Don't bring them all in at the same time because it's too much going on. It is a little convoluted, but I had a lot more fun with this one than I did with the first one. I think cinematography is really amazing. Like the scenes where I think some of the best swinging scenes of Spider-Man is actually making Spider-Man 2 with like when he's going through the first 10 minutes of the movie, fighting crime, or midway through the movie when he's going through fighting other crime and fighting Electro and fighting the Goblin. I do think it's one of the best emotional endings ever because even though Spider-Man's supposed to be the good guy and win at the day, he kind of loses at the end of the day when he loses Gwen. And I like that kind of like shows, hey, listen, even the best superheroes can still lose. You know, you might do everything you can in your power, but no matter how hard you try, it might not always end up, especially if you're Spider-Man, because no matter how hard you try, you're going to lose the people around you, the people that you love. So I like that a lot. So I have that number 8. Number 7, I have Far From Home. I think this is a very good Spider-Man movie as well. Again, on the hype of, this is right after Endgame. This is, after Infinity War, after Homecoming, so much hype. It's a very, very good movie. And I think Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was awesome casting, if you ask me. I love him as an actor. I love him as a performer. And I love Mysterio as one of my favorite villains, too. I mean, him and Venom are just two of my favorite top Spider-Man villains of all time. And I like that in the trailers. It was a misdirect of like how he's going to be like. And I knew as a Spider-Man fan, I'm like, this is kind of for sure a misdirect because I know how Mysterio really is. And I liked how they used him, they utilized him in the movie, like technology and illusion, stuff like that. But it's rewatchable a lot. But some of the humor was kind of like, to me, I was like, humor's not as crisp as, Homecoming was, or I didn't feel like, it wasn't as like clever as the first one. I had a lot of fun with it. I remember just getting back from London one before it came out. I remember they going to London. It was to me like, oh, cool, they're going to study abroad. I came back from my study abroad semester, so I can relate to it a lot too, like that aspect to it. I think John Watts is a very good filmmaker when it comes to like handling Spider-Man when he's outside of New York as well. But like I said, humor kind of took it down for me a little bit, and I wish the script was a bit tighter, like how it was with Homecoming. I think it was all hyped too after No Way Home, after Infinity War and Endgame, like what's going to happen next. And I was definitely like entertained a lot. I think it ends on a really cool note of like what's going to happen next. Like stay tuned. But yeah, I like it a lot. But when I go back to it, I really do like some of the movies more than that, especially No Way Home and Homecoming. But still a very good Spider-Man movie. I own all these movies on 4K, so still love it despite its flaws. Number 6, I have Into the Spider-Verse. You know what? Actually, now that I think of it, actually, I'm telling you guys this ranking. I might switch Into the Spider-Verse and Far From Home a little bit. But anyway, that's next time. So yes, I have number 6. I have Into the Spider-Verse. Like I said, as I told you at the beginning of the review episode, I thought this movie was beautifully animated, great storytelling, great voice acting, very fresh, very innovative. The year of 3 great superhero movies was this, Infinity War and Black Panther. It just doesn't hit all the notes for me. Again, I think it's a little overhyped when I saw it. I do think the humor only really worked for me. Good voice acting, but Nicolas Cage thing was kind of like, it was funny. Spider-Ham didn't work for me personally. Penny Parker was beautifully animated. Didn't really work for me either. It tries to be a little too weird at times, but they focus more on just Gwen, Peter, and maybe Miles. That would have been maybe a tighter story for me. Like, okay, this works for sure. But like I said, great animation. Kingpin is very menacing in this movie, even though as a animated movie, he's very menacing. He's very ominous and very dark and very like he means business. Which I like about we haven't seen really a Kingpin like that. I mean, we have Daredevil, but not for Spider-Man. That is. So that was really refreshing. Um, Again, good soundtrack as well. It just around the time, the animation for sure kind of like broke the mold of like what animation could be, what it can be, and like I said, it was very important that I think people saw Miles Morales, people saw themselves in this story. It was a year of like important representation in movies with Black Panther and with this movie especially. It was just like people find themselves in the movie or the story that anyone could wear the mask. You know, it doesn't matter if you're Miles, Peter, or Gwen. It could be anyone. Anyone could be Spider-Man in their universe. I love that message too. So that's number 6. Number 5, I actually have Across the Spider-Verse. I'm not gonna bore you with my review, as you already heard. Loved it a lot. Think it's a way better movie than the first. It's definitely better than some of the Spider-Man movies I just ranked. Can't wait to watch it again. Number 5 is Across the Spider-Verse. These 4 are gonna be more personal to me. So Spider-Man 4. So at 4, I have Spider-Man the original with Tobey Maguire. Like I said, I remember getting that movie on DVD for my birthday from one of my family. I forgot who gave me that movie on DVD. But anyway, I remember watching it. I remember my dad, when I was a kid, so he also told me about Spider-Man. I remember seeing like the TV commercials on TV and like the music videos like coming soon. And I didn't see it. I was too young. I mean, I was like maybe 5 or 6 when it came out. So like, oh, I'll see it eventually. And I remember getting on DVD. And I kid you not, I remember putting the DVD in on my Xbox, and I just remember our DVD player, and I would watch that thing over and over again. If you know me, Spider-Man and Barney are the things I watched over and over as a kid, no matter what. It's Barney VHS tape and Spider-Man DVD. I watched Spider-Man over and over and over again. I was just like, as a kid, the Goblin was so scary. It was like a horror movie to me. And now I know about Sam Raimi, who background was in horror before he became a superhero director. And I was just obsessed with this movie. I was obsessed with Spider-Man. Like, it was so cool. I wanted to be Spider-Man. I remember getting my dad, my parents, my mom and dad like buy me all these Spider-Man books. I remember that summer, that Halloween, I was Spider-Man, my little like onesie, whatever. I was so obsessed with Spider-Man. I remember watching all the special features and like the behind the scenes footage. I was just like, this is so amazing. How can this be like real? And that's definitely a big part of like why I love movies so much, because it made me feel larger than life. Like this could be possible. And I remember my dad. My parents take me to Blockbuster and to like rent the Spider-Man game on Xbox like over and over again for weeks. I was obsessed with this movie. Like I wanted the game so badly too. But yeah, I love that for Spider-Man. It means so much to me of like my introduction to Spider-Man as a character and Tobey Maguire as an actor and Sam Raimi as a filmmaker. So and Willem Dafoe and Kristen Dunst and everyone just was a big part of who I am today and my love for Spider-Man. So number 4 is the 2002, the first Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire. Number 3, I have Spider-Man Homecoming. And I remember seeing Spider-Man Civil War, and I said, hell no, hell no. Absolutely not. Nope, 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 nope. Not my Spider-Man, not my Spider-Man, hell no. I do not want him. Nope, nope, nope. I was devastated. I was like, they replaced Andrew Garfield with this clown? I said, no. And my friend I saw all the time, she was like, give it some time, man. You're being a hater. I was like, no, no, no. Not my Spider-Man. Hell no, hell no, hell no. Absolutely not. I remember that summer, I remember moving to Arizona that summer. My friends and I were like, dude, we're worried, man. It's going to be a bad movie. I was like, oh, but again, Michael Keaton's going to be the Vulture, who I love as an actor. I want to see Vulture on the screen finally. But my friends and I were just like, no, this movie's going to be so garbage. This movie's going to be shit. I was like, yeah. The trailer showed that Tommy Collins kind of looked so silly, and I was like, oh no. I was so worried. I was like, what are they gonna do to this movie? I remember taking my brother to see it opening day back in 2017, going, and I was like, I'm gonna hate this movie. I'm gonna hate this movie. I'm only seeing it for Iron Man. I'm gonna despise this movie. I freaking love Spider-Man: Homecoming, and I love being proven wrong about movies too. I love going in with low expectations, low standards, and being proven wrong. I love that. I love being proven wrong all the time when it comes to movies and shows. So I walked out saying, I love this movie so much. It was so much fun. The writing was so clever. It had that John Hughes vibe, which they promised to all the audience. John Hughes, kind of like Ferris Bueller and other kind of John Hughes movies. Oh, this movie worked for me on so many levels. The humor works. The soundtrack works. I love the writing in this movie so much. It had like 8 writers in this movie. And one of them is the kid from Freaks and Geeks, who I love as a filmmaker and director as well. I think it's John Francis Daly is the writer, the guy I'm thinking of. But man, the writing was so good. The direction from John Hughes was very refreshing and very unique. It definitely felt like a younger Spider-Man, but it worked. And all my doubts went out the way, and I was just like, man, I love this movie. Like I remember halfway through, I'm like, I love this movie. Michael Keaton, who I love as an actor, one of my favorite actors, was perfect as the Vulture. I love his villain arc, his backstory, why he's doing this, like what's his reason as a villain, and it worked for me in so many different ways. Um, and the humor worked too. I remember laughing my butt off so many times in this movie. It's just hilarious. And I love it's about kind of like, you're in high school, like you think you know the world, but you don't. Because I was for sure like teenager in high school, like I know more than my parents. I know what's good for me. I know what's right for me. And you don't. You definitely don't. 100% you don't. And I love that as much as like he thinks that he knows what's best for him and like he can do all this. But when you're end of the day, you're only 15, 14 years old. You don't know shit yet. You're still developing. You're still learning. But it's very relatable, and I think it just works. I love the road trip aspect too. They go to DC and like him being there, but kind of like Cross Spider Verse, Peter's figuring out how he can be Spider Man, how to be a teenager. Like he wants to be an Avenger, but like at what cost? And it's the coming of age story that I think I never saw that I thought that they were going to see in a Spider Man movie, but a superhero movie alone. And it just works. It really works. I love Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think I saw it like 4 times in theaters, and I was just like, I love it. And it just to me, it gave me what Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 didn't, and kind of had a feeling of the first two Tobey Maguire a little bit, but it felt more fresher. It was definitely for 2017. That voice of that year, and this generation. So loved it. I will watch that movie over and over again. Never get bored with it. It works. Stuff with Iron Man is really good because they don't rely on Iron Man too much or a lot. It's they pepper him in a little bit, and it's a great story about like your mentor looking out for you. Don't betray him either. So loved it. And number 3, Spider-Man: Homecoming. But the next two, I'm still these two are both tied with number 1, but I don't know. At number 2, I'm gonna have No Way Home. I said I love this movie so much too. Like really, like when like I remember during COVID, it was just like they're gonna film Spider-Man 3. What's gonna happen? There's rumors like they're bringing back Doc Ock. They're bringing back Electro, and I'm like, no way, they're not. Like they're all dead. How's this gonna happen? And it was rumors, and I was like, yeah. And like they said, I remember reading this maybe like 2020 COVID, like Christmas 2020, like rumor there's gonna be all 3 Spider-Man. And I was like, no way. I was a doubter. I was like, no way. They're gonna bring back Tobey and Andrew. No way. Knowing Marvel and Sony, not gonna happen. And I put it on pause for like a few months. I was like, not gonna happen. But then you hear like, oh, they were spotted in Atlanta. They were spotted at this place, and I was like, I don't believe it. And they go, yeah, we're bringing back Doc Ock still, and I'm like, okay, that's more believable, sure. The more gone with it, I was like, okay, sure. I remember that summer was like that summer of 2021. It was like leaked photos here and there, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I didn't believe it. Didn't believe it. And then that first teaser came out in August 2021, and I had no idea that Willem Dafoe was coming back, and that threw me for a loop. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" We didn't see him at all in that teaser. We heard his little his laugh and his like the Goblin bomb. I said, "No way, absolutely no way, it's gonna be the same Goblin." Because I like that. I knew about Doc Ock. I knew about Electro. That's it. I was surprised as hell when I saw that Goblin bomb and hear Willem Dafoe's laugh. And then I was like, okay, I need to see this movie like tomorrow, now. I was so hyped. Like it's like August, I started working, and it was like more and more months. And then hearing more stories, it was like you're gonna see Thomas Hayden Church, you're gonna see Brizza Fonz, from the Lizard. And then the Sandman. I was like, wow, they're bringing in everyone basically. And then Venom came out. Venom 2 came out, which I like too. People hate that movie too, but I think it's good. I like both Venoms. And then that post-credit scene happened, and I said, oh my god, anything's possible now. When we saw Venom look at this TV with Tom Holland Spider-Man, I was like, oh, okay. This is where I was like, okay, anything's possible now. And that second trailer came out. I remember it was like, I think it was like the week of my birthday, my girlfriend's birthday, and I was like watching this over and over again. Like, I'm seeing all the clues. And they showed Jamie Foxx back to Electro. You saw Goblin. You saw everyone came back. I was like, oh my gosh. But they didn't show Tobey and Andrew. And I remember seeing all these like interviews with both Tobey and Andrew. Andrew's like, nope, I'm not in it, man. Sorry. Like, I'm not in it. I promise. Like, I wish, but I'm not in it. And I was starting to believe them. I'm like, no, like maybe they are in it, but maybe they're not. And you saw more leaked stuff, but it was like, no, it was Photoshop. It's Photoshop, not real. And I was like, looks pretty real for Photoshop. but I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, I think they're gonna be in it, but they're not in it. I'm gonna be disappointed, but it is what it is. Long as it's a good movie. And I remember that when the premiere happened, I tried to avoid spoilers. One said, "Oh my god, the best Spider-Man movie ever! I can't believe they pulled this off." And I said, "Okay, that's promising." Opening night, myself, my girlfriend Zeta, Nick, his girlfriend Kaylin, we also had an IMAX opening night. Oh my gosh, I just remember just being so happy. Like I was crying, I was clapping, I was cheering. I was remember squeezing Nick's hand, squeezing Zeta's hand. I was like, "Oh my god, guys, it's happening!" And when we saw Tobey and Andrew show up, I just went ballistic. I was like, "Oh my god!" But no, before that, seeing Doc Ock, seeing Alfred Molina, seeing Willem Dafoe, seeing Jimmy Fox, seeing all of them pop up first, I was like, "Oh my god!" They brought back all these guys who I love as villains. This is crazy. Doc Ock, especially. I mean, also Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. And then when you see Toby and Andrew come in, I was tears in my eyes. I was like cheering. People in the theater was like going crazy, like, "Oh my gosh!" People were like on their feet cheering. And it was like 2021, so it was like still like we were still doing with COVID, but it was just fun being in a theater. People having that reaction. It was kind of like pre-COVID with Infinity War and Endgame. People going crazy, clapping, like being at a rock concert. And it was just like the experience was so special for myself. I know for Nick, and I hope they think it was Zeta and Kaylin as well, but it was just so much fun, like experience that with the crowd, being with some good people, and just having that experience with everyone. It's just not having it spoiled for me too. I was like, thank God I avoid spoilers, but it was just so special. And then seeing all three of them together, the pointing meme, the great soundtrack, seeing all the villains, it just it touched my heart in so many ways. I'm like, I was seeing my childhood Spider-Man on there, my teenager Spider-Man on there, and then my current Spider-Man on there. It was just an experience like no other. I still get goosebumps thinking about it, or whenever I watch it. I've seen the movie now like 1,000 times. I watched it probably 5 times in theaters. When they brought it back for the rerun for like the extended version on theaters, I would just say that saw it that weekend too. I bought it the first day I came on Blue 4K. I have a shirt of all three of them. Like all, I just love that movie so much. So it, it might feel like my favorite Spider-Man movie, but it's a tie because it just Spider-Man 2. But anyways, yeah, So No Way Home I love. It's such a special movie. Yes, there's flaws. People have flaws to it, but to me, it's probably if not perfect Spider-Man movie because it brings so much. And having seen all them together was a dream come true. So at number two, almost one is Spider-Man No Way Home. Number one, I have 2004 Spider-Man 2, one of the best sequels ever, one of the best superhero movies ever, if you ask me. But again, No Way Home was kind of catching up that number one spot, if you ask me. But Spider-Man 2, I think I remember as a kid, just having loved the first one so much. And I remember my dad took me to the opening night of the second one, and I was just like amazed because like seeing this, it was just like the story was amazing. It was seeing Doc Ock. It was seeing how like amazing the practical CGI looked, and like the story of Spider-Man saying, "I'm done. Like I don't want to be. I'm done with this. I'm done with being Superman. I want to focus on my life. Like I want to be Peter Parker first, then Spider-Man. It shouldn't be a priority. Like when do I get my chance to like be my hero of my own story?" Love that message. I think Sam Raimi elevated his filmmaking with the fighting, the techniques, the camera work, and I just love everything about it because the humor is really funny. The humor is better than the first one. All the jokes land. Tobey Maguire is a great. He's my favorite Spider-Man. He still is my favorite Spider-Man to this day because again, growing up, it means the world to me. But it just the Doc Ock him because you feel for Doc Ock too because he was trying to change the world and do better, but he gets corrupted by the AI, which is now kind of like becoming more real now, almost 20 years later of like, oh my gosh, like look at this, and it's just like the performances from Alfred Molina to Doc to Peter to Tobey Maguire to Kristen Dunst, it just all works. And I mentioned this in the other movies, but J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is perfect casting. I'm so glad they brought him back for No Way Home because it was so funny how his interaction with Peter is and like Peter trying to like work for him, and it works. Also the cinematography by Bill Pope. Bill Pope did The Matrix of all movies, and this guy is a phenomenal cinematographer, and he makes these amazing shots, these great cinematography shots with Peter and with Doc Ock. Because it's all about like there's more to me than a Spider-Man, which is part of the message too. Is like Peter wants to like say, hey, listen, I'm not a Spider-Man. I'm Peter Parker. I want to like don't lose that part of myself that I want to focus on me. And then, oh man, I love that movie so much. It's also a good soundtrack as well, but and at the end too, where you see Doc Ock redeem himself, trying to like drowning him in the pool, drowning him in the ocean, was it the ocean or river, or whatever, because he saw he became a monster. Just it's a very good human story, packed within a Spider-Man movie, which I think is very rare and very special to, I think any comic book movie, but especially Spider-Man 2. So it's still number one. But I do think No Way Home is gonna be my number one soon enough. But like I said, that's my ranking of all Spider-Man movies. I love these. I love these movies so much, both animated, live action, and the game too. I love the Spider-Man game I got for the PS4. I can't wait to get the new one. It comes out in a few months with him and Miles Morales and Venom. Spider-Man 2 for the PlayStation. I can't wait to play that. Yeah, everyone. That's Spider-Man really means a lot to me. So I hope you enjoyed my ranking. I hope you enjoyed my rambling of all these movies because, like I said, all of them mean so much to me in their own specific ways, no matter what. But yeah, hope you enjoy this bonus/review episode. And so guys, go see Joyride. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, go to our Instagram page, our link tree. The links will be there, or our website, Midway Avenue Productions screening tab. The links will be there to sign up for a screening. It's a super funny movie. Hope you can see a funny movie on us. We know we want to do more of these screenings and put the word out with these movies over the summer. So look out for our website. Look out for our Instagram. I'm gonna be posting a lot more of like announcements and partnerships and screening giveaways and screening RSVP sign up. So look out for that. But until then, guys, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you at the next episode. Take care, guys.